My dad has always lived for attention, for control. But when I found blueprints for a hidden cabin under a fake company name, I realized he wasn't running. He was planning something far worse. I'm Jack. I'm 26, and I live in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside Denver. I work IT support for a healthcare software company, remote most days. Not glamorous, not flashy, but it pays the bills and, more importantly, keeps me away from the chaos that is my family. I thought I'd made peace with them. Turns out, I was just lying to myself. This whole nightmare kicked off less than a month ago. It was mid-March when I went over to my parents' house for dinner. Something I do every couple of weeks, more out of habit than genuine excitement. My younger sister, Emma, was there too. She's 25, still lives at home, and has that kind of quiet privilege you only notice if you've lived beside it your whole life. She doesn't get every toy or gadget she wants, but she always seems to walk away with the things that really matter. We were sitting at the dinner table when my mom lit up like she was hosting a travel commercial. She pulled out this glossy brochure for a cabin resort in Aspen, one of those rustic meets luxury places where you unplug, hike, maybe ride horses, drink wine by a fire pit. I could practically smell the pine trees through the pictures. So I asked casually, "Hey, could I come along? I haven't had a vacation in years. Might be nice to spend some time together." She froze. Her smile softened into pity. Then came the speech. Money was tight after taxes. The cabin only slept 4. She didn't want me to feel pressured to pay my own way since rent was expensive and all that. I nodded. Sure. No worries. I left their place that night not even angry, just hollow. I kept replaying it in my head. Maybe it really was just about the money, maybe they were sparing me. I convinced myself it wasn't personal. But then, a week later, reality slapped me in the face. It was late, around 9:30, and I was taking a break from work. I opened Facebook, and there it was. A photo. My mom, my dad, Emma, and her boyfriend Zach, standing arm in arm on a cliff in Colorado, smiling like they were in a Hallmark ad. The caption? Our family and our dear daughter with her new boyfriend. Family together. My heart dropped. Not only had they gone without me, they replaced me with Zach. Zach, Emma's boyfriend of 2 months. And here's the kicker? I actually liked the guy. Quiet, polite, the kind of guy who says, "Nice to meet you," and means it. If they had asked me if it was okay to bring him, I would have said yes. But they didn't. They didn't even give me the choice. They just erased me. I didn't react. Didn't call, didn't text, didn't even comment on the post. I let it fester like acid in my gut. A week after they got back, I was at home, finishing dinner and half watching Netflix when, knock, knock, knock. I opened the door and nearly laughed. Mom, Dad, and Emma. Standing there in the hallway looking like life had chewed them up and spit them out. Their clothes rumpled, eyes hollow like they hadn't slept in days. I didn't greet them. I just waited. Mom started talking fast. Their SUV had been stolen and stripped for parts. Dad had invested retirement money in some friend's scam business. Emma had maxed out her credit card trying to help. They were drowning. And now they needed me. Just a little help, a place to crash, maybe a loan. I cut her off with one word. No. Not because I couldn't help. Not because I didn't have space. But because they had already shown me exactly where I stood. The look on their faces, like I had shoved them out into a snowstorm with no coat. Then, without another word, they turned and left. For 2 days, silence. No texts, no guilt trips, nothing. It was eerie. My mom, the queen of group messages, suddenly vanished. Even Emma stopped posting her usual brunch selfies and sunset shots. For a second, I thought, maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe this is the wake-up call. But I was wrong. So wrong. Because Friday night, Zach messaged me. Just 3 words, "Can we talk?" I told him yes. When he showed up at my place, the man looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He sat down, ignored the drink I offered, and then dropped the truth. He hadn't known I wasn't invited. He thought I was just too busy with work. He said his stomach turned when he realized I'd been cut out. He hadn't even wanted to go on that trip, but Emma pushed it. Then he confessed something else. After I turned my family away, they dragged him into the storm. Made him pay for groceries with his savings. My mom cornered him, asking about his long-term plans with Emma. She even pulled out baby photos and started talking about marriage and kids, as if 2 months of dating meant lifelong commitment. He told me he felt like he'd walked into a cult. So that morning, he ended it. He broke up with Emma, packed his bags, and left. I thought that was the peak of crazy. I was wrong again. Because just 2 days later, I walked out to my car, and froze. Across my windshield, smeared in oil, were the words, "Family doesn't leave family." That was the moment everything shifted. They weren't just toxic anymore. They were dangerous. And I decided, if they wanted a war, then I'd fight. But it was going to be on my terms. And they would never see it coming. It had been a few months since the eviction. For the first time in what felt like years, my life was quiet. Peaceful, even. I was seeing someone new, and things were going well. Work was steady, I was in the running for a promotion. I'd even started looking at dogs online, imagining a goofy rescue mutt snoring at the end of my bed. For once, I thought maybe I could breathe without waiting for the next family disaster. And then, out of nowhere, the past came knocking. But this time, it wasn't my dad. No dramatic voicemail, no guilt-soaked email. It was a message from a lawyer. Not some shady, one-page website type. A real estate lawyer. Out of state. The subject line hit me like a cold slap, urgent regarding purchase of property by Mr. Ronald K., my dad's full name. My stomach turned. I clicked it, half expecting a scam. But it wasn't. According to the lawyer, my dad had quietly bought a piece of land outside of town. Only, not in his own name. He used a shell LLC, with some long-ago business associate listed as the manager. Sneaky, under the radar. The land itself? Just raw dirt and trees. No utilities. No permits. Forgotten by the world. But buried in the paperwork, blueprints. A cabin. Self-sustaining. Off-grid. No address listed, nothing traceable. Like he was trying to disappear into the forest. I just sat there staring at my laptop, my pulse in my ears. This wasn't my dad. My dad craved an audience. He fed off attention, off controlling the narrative. But this? This looked like a man building an escape hatch. The lawyer hadn't even meant to reach me. He'd stumbled across my name while cross-referencing my grandfather's deed of trust. Something about overlapping zoning lines, old land disputes. Pure accident. I didn't tell Grandpa at first. I figured, maybe it was better if he didn't know. Maybe it would just stay some half-finished fantasy of my dad's. But last week, Grandpa called me over. And the look in his eyes? I knew he already had pieces of the puzzle before I even opened my mouth. He leaned back in his chair and said flatly, "Got a call. Old friend says your dad's been snooping around the assessor's office. Asking about boundaries, permits. Trying to redraw maps in the dark." I nodded slowly, and finally told him what I discovered. Grandpa didn't react right away. He just sat there, quiet, nodding. Then he asked, "You know why he's doing it, right?" I shrugged, confused. He didn't even pause. He's not trying to run. He's waiting. Waiting for people to forget. Waiting for the smoke to clear. He'll come crawling back, pretend he's changed, act humble. That's who he is. And suddenly, it clicked. My father wasn't escaping, he was staging a comeback. A slow one. Quiet. Manipulative. Exactly his style. Then Grandpa reached into his desk and slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a deed. Not to our land. But to the property right next door to the one my dad had just bought. Grandpa smirked, the kind of smirk that said he'd been 3 steps ahead this whole time. "If he wants to disappear into the woods," Grandpa said, "then he can wake up every morning and look at my house." I didn't even ask how he'd pulled it off. I just sat there holding that deed, the weight of it settling in my chest. Because deep down, I knew something. This wasn't over. My dad wasn't planning on fading away. He was planning his return. A slow rebuild. A manipulative crawl back into power. The difference this time? We were watching. And he had no idea.